Okay, everybody, welcome back. This is our fourth video. There's a couple of things that I realized that I was saying that's incorrect. First things first, when I was saying that the get header gets the header kind of like this up here, sorry. We're going to be doing that, but this is getting the the head section of the website, which is setting up all your metadata, your CSS libraries, and your JavaScript. So I said that, and there's too many headers. Anyways, so that's what you're calling. You're referencing the head section of your HTML document. We will be getting into calling the page header, which is the exact same concept, where we're going to set up a file and then link to it in our index file. The video did cut out for me at the very end. So what I did is I went in and I put in all of my libraries. So I cut out there at the very end, but what we were doing is we downloaded the normalize library, Bootstrap, and the very last thing I said was the jQuery min. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video right here, and if you've not already done, set up your libraries. We want to import all of these to make sure that they are working. I also put in the metadata. We need to make sure that we have the char set, and there is a PHP command here that will call the UTF-8, which I believe is the valid one now. And then this here, this is for mobile responsive. You need this metadata in order to have responsive websites, which you need now. It's very critical to have a responsive website. This, I forgot to put it in. This, I should have mentioned this in my second video when we were going over the config file. We need to require once the config file, and actually I don't need this. But what we want is we want to reference that config file, because what happens is when you start up a new website, you want to make sure that those paths that we defined are being called. So make sure that you have that copied as well. So I apologize, I ran out of video. I guess I can only record for 15 minutes at a time. So pause the video, update all of this information. This is what your head section should look like for your page. Okay, and then also we set up the footer, and right now the only thing that our footer consists of are just the footer tags. Brilliant. Okay, so moving on. We need to create a sidebar, but I'm going to actually postpone that for another video, and we're going to get into actually developing the site, because I know you're all eager to kind of see how everything comes together. So we'll skip that for now, and then we're going to move on. So let's see what we have. Okay, so what we want to do for this section is we want to create a loop. Begin page loop. Okay, so here is the code to loop our page, and I'm going to explain that real quick. You're going to want to copy this down. It's a while function. So if you're not familiar with loops, all programming languages have them, and what they do is they loop through specific parameters to make sure all the content kind of shows up. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through the posts, okay, and then we're going to display the content, and then we're going to end that content. Go ahead, pause the video, write down this code, and so after we do that, and to kind of show you what that does, is when we're inside our WordPress backend, we can look at pages, and by default there's a sample page. We can edit this, and it has this block of code that we can, or text box that we can write, and we can write in any content that we want. Anything that's written here is what's going to be looped. That's what that code does, is it loops for anything that's located in those pages. This is going to be very handy for when you're when we're building out our articles page and we want to loop the content for our posts. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to just have your loop page here. So make sure that you have that written down. And then after we have that, we can dive in and start coding our website. So before we do that, what we're going to do is we need to install our template. So go ahead and go to Appearance, click on Themes, and then you should see our template is there, Eyes for Pies. Right now we're on 2016, Eyes for Pies. We're going to activate that. There's not a screenshot there. We actually have to take a screenshot and add that, and we can do that when we're done. But go ahead and click Activate, and now this should be our template. There's nothing there, so there shouldn't be anything here. It's just a blank canvas. But we should, if we go to the page source, we should see all of the code that we have here. So check this out. So remember that we called our library here, and so we kind of set it up here. So we have our metadata, our CSS, and JavaScript libraries. Before I move on, I always like to test these links to make sure I link them up right. Usually I don't, but it looks like I got that one right. I got that one right. So what you'll want to do is just go through, make sure that you have everything set up right. If you don't, then your code just won't work. It won't read anything, and you need it to. Especially if you're using Bootstrap and you're calling the Bootstrap functions and they don't speak to each other. Okay, so it looks like everything's working. Everything's right where we want it to be. We don't need PHP admin anymore. Okay, so we can go back to Manage Themes. Now we can just code a website like we normally would. So, since we're going to be working on the home page, what I want to do, my home pages tend to look a little bit more different than my sub pages. So I know that we have, we're building a blog, and usually when you have a blog, you have like a category section to show you the different categories where you publish your posts, recent posts, stuff like that. I like to do mine a little bit different, but I think we'll kind of stick towards that. I'm going to kind of just keep it simple and make a good-looking website. Again, this is all my design. You can go about and do your own design, and then we'll get back together and kind of work on the functionality of WordPress. But I want to get things rolling so we can see visually what we're doing here. Okay, so this is HTML5, so we can open up header tags, and then we can create a div class. Now, for those of you who are new at Bootstrap, as long as you have the libraries imported, like we did earlier, we can start using some of those classes. If you don't know what Bootstrap is a library that shows you, that has classes set up already. And I'll kind of show you. It's just CSS, which is way cool. It's a library that has preset CSS. They minimized it, or they compressed it so it looks like a blob of code, but it's more efficient this way. But you'll see, you'll recognize a lot of things like H6, H4, lists. Because a lot of the things that you do in web development are very redundant, and Bootstrap just centralized everything. I'll show you what I mean. So, we have our header, and let's give our header a class, Container Fluid. Container Fluid is a Bootstrap call, and what that does is it means stretch this container all the way across the browser. And so I'll kind of show you this. We're going to call this page header. So if you put a space in between your classes, that means you're adding a new class. So you can add as many classes as you want to a div class. So now I'm going to write container, which is another Bootstrap call, and that contains everything in a wrapper. And I believe they have it set to like 960 or 1170, I can't remember, pixels width. And everything's already in the middle for you, so you don't have to worry about centering everything. Your container is already built for you. And I'm going to call this page header wrapper. Okay. It's always important to comment your div classes, because there's been so many times where I have misspelled div or something and the whole thing breaks. So this is our page header wrapper. Okay, so make sure that you do that. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add another div class, and this is going to be our logo. Your site always has a logo. We're just going to do an h1 tag, and we're going to say eyes for pies logo. Okay, eyes for pies div class, and then we're going to do, actually this is going to be our main nav. So in here we're going to use the nav HTML5 call, and we're going to create a UL list, and we're going to create some LIs, and then inside the LIs we're going to create some href tags. Okay, and we'll call this home, and let's just duplicate that a couple of times. Okay, so kept it very simple. This is just our header, and as I mentioned before, we're going to modularize this, not in this video, probably in the next one, or probably at the very end. I'll figure that out here in a second. But we have our logo and our main nav, and I kind of want the logo and the main nav to be on the same row, but side by side. That's usually the industry standard. So we'll go ahead and do that. One final Bootstrap call that I'm going to do. So Bootstrap makes making responsive websites very easy. They do everything in columns. Bootstrap columns. There should be an image here to kind of show you what I mean. So they have columns of 12. Oh, here's a great picture of it. So they have 12 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These green lines, 12 columns. And so you can define which div element is taking up as much space. So I can have 12 individual items, or I can break them up by 2s, by 3s, by 4s. I can kind of do an 8 or a 4, any number of combination, as long as it adds up to 12. Okay, so since I want my logo over here and I want my navigation over here, I want to split that up evenly, so 6 and 6. If that makes sense. So the way you call it is you say call, and then the screen size, medium 6. I'm just going to copy and paste that there, and then we'll save it. And we'll save this, and let's take a look. There we go. Welcome to WordPress. This is your first WordPress row. Okay, so this is here because we are looping through our information, and this is one of the posts that WordPress puts there by default. Otherwise, everything's looking great. We have eyes for pies, and we have our main navigation here. Looking great, okay, for what it is, anyway. So there's a couple of things that we want to do. We want to go to getbootstrap.com, and this is going to be your key as you're using their calls. Okay, so we can click on navs, and that is going to take me down here, and I kind of look at different ways that they have their navigations set up, and I like this one, pills. So what we do is we go nav pills, and this is a class in our UL. So we can go class nav pills. Great. And then they have a role presentation. The very first one has an active, which highlights the active page. And that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and then add a class. It's not a class, it's a role, sorry, in the li tag. And then the rest of them all have a presentation role. So we can go here, we can go there, there, and just paste them all and separate them. There we go. Let's save it, and let's look at it. Now our main nav should look like that. See how great Bootstrap is? It just, everything's automatically done for me. So let's go ahead. I'm going to just remove this. You can leave it if you want. I'm going to put it back later, but I'm going to delete this whole thing just because I don't want to loop it right now, and we will actually get back to doing that. Okay, see you in the next video.